glad you could all join us today. We are thrilled to have Jen from Level Up Your Home here with us today to talk about ways that we can make our living environments more safe, more sensory friendly for individuals that we work with and for our family members, particularly those with disabilities. So Jen, thank you so much for being here, and I will turn it over to you.
Great, thank you for having me. So excited to be here and learn about this organization and its community. And I do want to make this interactive, so if people have questions that pop up, do feel free to write them in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer them live. And if we don't get to it, I can certainly answer it later and follow up. And I'm sure with Sarah, we could get some additional information out. So hopefully this is just the beginning of working together. And I'm going to admit one more person, Rebecca. All right. So I'm sorry, I just admitted somebody in. So hopefully this is the beginning of working together and helping with the technology aspect and all the capabilities it can provide. A little bit about me, just real quick. I'm your host today. I'm a mother of two. I've got Jack and Mandy, you can see there in the picture. I'm the CEO of Level Up Your Home and Level Up Automation. We are a smart home automation and integration company. This is specifically what we specialize in. And I'm also a speaker. I speak in different parts of the country about the trends and what's happening now, as well as 5 years from now in the industry and where it's going as it's emerging. A little bit about our mission. We are really meant to be trusted advisors to all of you in the community, as well as organizations like Northeast Arc, to really help you understand what's happening as this space evolves, because everything that is coming out today in about 6 months from now may or may not be different. So it's a continually evolving space, and really we see ourselves in a position where we're looking to be technology teachers to really help bridge that gap. Everyone else is really busy with their lives, right? They've got children, a job, other people they take care of, and to keep up with the latest technology is very tough, and that's what we specialize in so that we can make it easy. Our goals today are twofold. One is to really help you learn the best approach to implement smart home technology to enable safety, convenience, as well as enjoyment of the space. And then secondly, gain increased confidence in these areas, because it can be a little bit overwhelming for sure. So twofold are the goals today: to really learn about it and gain some confidence around it so you can start to begin to really realize the benefits of home technology automation that is out there. There's 3 areas we're gonna really cover today. One is you're gonna wanna think about what are your specific goals. So we'll talk about really consulting with yourself, consulting with the people in your home to understand, what are the priority and needs that you have for the technology so that we can match the technology to that specific need. One of the wonderful things about home automation technology is it is very, it can be very personal and very specific. So really understanding what you need and what the other people in your home need help you determine what is the right technology that's out there for you that is going to be a good match. And then thinking about really kind of the serviceability of these products. Once these products are in your home, you now have them, right? So there's some care in terms of how do you continue to evolve and make sure that those products are continuing to work for you and your family. So the connected home, what is a smart home? We're going to cover why smart homes are important, how they can help you, and really when to apply it. And what I've tried to do for this organization is really boil it down into 3 steps so that you can walk away today having some feeling of, okay, this is a bit more actionable for me. I want to ground everybody just where we are within, let's say, the arc of technology. In the early 90s, we had something called the internet, right? That came into play. And here's the growth of the internet. We remember, for those of you that are old enough, remember when there used to not be the internet. It's almost unfathomable now, right? So the internet came in, it changed our lives. It was shortly followed by smartphones, right? Everybody has a smartphone now. It used to be that that was a real luxury item, and now everybody has a smartphone. So you can see that their curves of adoption mirror each other, and that is really the technology adoption curve. So as we look at connected home and where we are, if you look at early 2010, that's really early adopters. Some of you may be early adopters where you tried something out 10 years ago and you're on that blazing edge of the first product coming out. And then in 2015 is really something within that's called the chasm, which basically means here's where the products are being manufactured enough where they can be mass marketed and adoptable by the general public. So as we look at this curve, which mirrors these two curves, right, we're about here, which means that we are certainly advanced and a lot has come up in the last couple of years. And there's amazing capabilities out there, but we're still very early on. So if you're somebody who has a lot of smart home products already, you're definitely on the early adopter phase. If you are somebody who has one or none, you're not behind by any means. It is still early technology, and the information you're getting here is very much kind of cutting edge in terms of where the market is. But, you know, in about 5 to 10 years, we'll have many more products. US consumers just in next year alone will have, you know, over 480 million connected devices, which is a lot. And so that is fantastic, but also creates a challenge for communities and people, right? Because there are so many devices to choose from and a number of platforms, and there's a lot of marketing around it. So what we're going to do today in these 3 steps is help kind of boil it down for you to get you into a place where you can start to identify what your priorities are and match those products to it. All right. So here are some of the elements of a smart home before we get into the 3 steps. You can certainly automate and control your smart home in different ways, and we'll cover that in a little bit more detail later on. Wireless networks we'll talk about, very important to the smart home. They literally are the foundation of a connected home. If you don't have a strong wireless network, the products won't work as intended. There's audio and video, there's smart smoke and CO detectors, keyless locks, connected thermostats, garage doors can be smart. There's, on the entertainment side, outdoor televisions, connected audio outdoors, shades, lighting, leak protection. There's even smart mirrors, and there's smart toilets now too, believe it or not, if you're familiar with it. So just about everything that touches your home has the capability to be automated now. It's very immersive. As we look at smart home here, as we talked about some of those categories, I just want to mention within the context of what we're talking about, you know, you probably heard of telehealth and a number of other things. A lot of this is really kind of crossing, especially as we've gone through this pandemic and COVID. You'll hear a lot more about doctor's appointments at home, telehealth, things like that. So what we're seeing within the smart home is these spaces used to be kind of like separate industries, and now they're coming like this. So I just want to give you a little future kind of view on, we're seeing a lot of convergence here, which is great. So health, wellness, safety, and independence are now really key categories within home automation. And what that means for us is that there's investment and technology continuing to be developed in those areas, which is fantastic to the goals that we're trying to achieve. So as we look at a smart home, we are going to first get into the difference between a smart home versus having 1 or 2 products that have connected capabilities. And then we will get into kind of the more hands-on, actionable part of this webinar. So a clever home, which would mean if you were to, let's say, have an indoor connected camera, maybe you want to watch children, maybe you want to watch your cats while you're at work. There's a few different reasons. Maybe you're just concerned about security, right? So if it's one app that you have that you're controlling it, that's great. That provides you a convenience. Let's say you add another item. You add a video doorbell, which allows you to answer your phone from anywhere in the world and be able to two-way talk through it. And let's say you buy a different brand for that. Well, you now have two apps on your phone that you're managing, one to see your indoor camera, one to see your video doorbell. Let's say you also add on smart garage doors because you've got somebody in your family who always leaves the garage door open and you want to make sure that it's closed. That's another app. So as we look at clever homes, that's an example of a home that's sort of helpful. It's clever, but it's not optimized. So clever homes really, they improve efficiency. You need to program them, typically in separate apps. Typically, they don't understand routines or preferences and work together or change dynamically, which is really what the version of a smart home is for it to be less work. So if you're managing a lot of apps, that's not that smart. So I'm just clarifying the differences for it. Devices and brands do not work together. It has an understanding of you that is static. And what that means is as your family's needs and preferences change, the clever home just stays static. A smart home understands that it's 3 to 5 years later. Perhaps there are people in your house, like children that are a different age, right? And they have different needs or different capabilities at that time. A smart home grows with you. A clever home stays static. And lastly, clever homes typically require effort and ongoing upkeep. So if you're managing the software updates on multiple devices, on multiple brands, multiple apps, next thing you know, you're like a little IT department for your house, right? And nobody wants to add responsibilities. Even me, who loves technology and tinkering. It's not that much fun when you're busy, right? A smart home, on the other hand, automatically optimizes everything important to your house. So it's really they're related, but the smart home is where the ideal state where you want to be. It understands your routines and preferences through learning. Devices work together. There's a great deal of interoperability. So if you have separate brands, that's okay, but they work together, not separately. You're working in one hub for your home, not multiple apps. It anticipates what you want to do even before you do it, which I think sounds a little scary because it sounds like it's a lot of artificial intelligence. But what that really means is you have control of that. And that means that if you have an appointment the next day and you forget about it, you're reminded because your house is optimized and it's connected to your Google Calendar or your Microsoft Calendar, whatever you have. And lastly, really for homes to be smart, they should be effortless. The technology should work for you. And it should be less really maintenance of the technology. So I hope that was helpful because there's certainly, I think as we've grown and as that curve has grown, a number of homes are clever, but they're not always smart. And there's some key differences behind it. So just to wrap up this portion, smart homes should be effortless. They should be easy to use. Anyone should be able to control it within means. So if you have people that you don't want to control certain aspects, that can be programmed. But mostly anyone should be able to control things like lights, temperature, things like that. It should be able to be customized to certain areas of your house and such. So that should be easy and people should be able to do it and it should be accessible. And the home control really touches upon audio, video, temperature, lighting, shade, security, and healthy home environment categories, which we'll touch upon hopefully in a future webinar, air quality, lighting, things like that, that really help your home environment be more enjoyable and healthy for you. So your step one of the 3 steps is your Wi-Fi network. There is, sort of a formula that we look at when we build Wi-Fi networks for people. And this is really simpling it down for you. A number of people might start with their internet service provider, which is the bubble in the middle here, and say, okay, what I'm going to do for my house is I'm going to buy the top speed or the second top speed, and I'm going to pay $100 a month so I get the fastest internet possible, right? And there's a lot of marketing and information out there around you. Well, the speed that you're getting into the house and what you're paying for is certainly important, but if you don't have the hardware that supports that speed and the equipment in different parts of your house based on where you need it, which are access points, you can be paying a lot of money for service that you're never going to get. So, you know, I'll share with you that a number of clients will go in to their homes and we'll start with their network, which is where we always start before we add devices onto it. And, you know, they're paying $100, $110 a month for the highest internet speed, but their router is 6 years old. And in our technology world, a 6-year-old router might as well be 20, 30 years old at this point. That's how much technology has changed in the last couple of years. So the router, which is that piece, and sometimes internet service providers will provide it to you, and it might be a modem router combo, or they may be separate. But that piece of equipment, that is probably the most important piece of equipment that you have for your smart home in your house, because it enables all the other capabilities of the products that are put in. And what we've seen with COVID and all of the people attending school from home, having appointments from home, video calls like this, there's a tremendous amount of stress on the network, and kids are doing video games and whatever else, that it's become very laggy for a number of people. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that their router is not up to date, and it also is not does not have the capabilities to kind of take that pipeline that they're paying for that's coming in the house and actually provide it. The second is access points, and that really means, and I think a number of you probably know this, but those are access points in different parts of your house that help you gain Wi-Fi. So if you have portions of your house where you have zones where you don't get any Wi-Fi at all, chances are it's too far from the router, it can't reach it, and you need an access point there. So those are really the three kind of key things in terms of the capabilities you have in your house. What kind of speed are you having come to your house? By the way, you may or may not need that top speed. If you have a really good router and a couple access points where you need it, you may not need to be paying the full amount. You may be able to actually upgrade your hardware equipment and be able to step down and pay less on a monthly bill because what you have is great. So something to think about there. The last two bubbles we have on the screen, smart home size and, home size and coverage. That's something you're going to want to think about. So a home that is 1,000 square feet versus 3,000 square feet has different needs in terms of coverage, right? And so the number of access points you have would be different. Secondly, you know, some people have needs where they need Wi-Fi outside. So your inside Wi-Fi may be able to reach outside, or you may need an access point that actually is outside of your home, which they make, which is all weather. It is outside all year. So those are the two things you want to think about. How big is my home, and where do I need coverage in the house? Where are you using Wi-Fi? And that will really help drive, you know, how many access points are needed. Is it one? Is it more than one? And where are they placed within the home so that it cannot be frustrating and you just get the Wi-Fi that you're expecting and that you're paying for where you need it. All right. Step two, where to start. And I think this is kind of the fun part, because this helps you really understand what am I using these devices for, right? I've got, let's say you have a strong Wi-Fi network, that's a check. Number two is thinking about what are your needs for you as well as the people that are living in your home. And we find, generally speaking, they fall in one of three categories. One is safety. They want to be able to make sure that their home is safe and they understand what's happening in it, what's happening outside of it. Secondly, they want to have entertainment in their home, and the network and the smart home supports that entertainment. Example of that would be streaming services, other items that help support, having, just enjoying your home, movies, music, audiobooks, things like that. And then lastly, promoting wellness and comfort. And that really has to do with temperature control, lighting, things that support accessibility in the house in terms of making sure that, those basic things are in a good spot and supported through automation and technology. Shades is another category for that. So when we work with clients, one of the things we try to find out is there's some people who just say, I want a complete smart home, and that would be the minority. They might, it might be less than 5% of people that says, I want everything, right? I want the network, I want everything. But really, for the most part, people come to us, usually it starts with safety, or they're looking to add a smart thermostat or some other capability to their home. And they start with those one or two products that let them kind of dip their toe into home automation. So we will go through kind of some examples. I put some examples together for you just so it can be a little bit more, let's see if I can minimize this down. There we go. A little bit more tangible for you. So if your goal is safety, there's three areas you're going to want to think about. One is, do you want to control access to your home? And you also want to think about, what do you want to be able to see? Is the outdoors important to you? Is it not important to you? Is the inside important to you? Is it not important to you? And based on really understanding, if your goal is, I want to start with safety, access, exterior, and interior are really the three main areas you want to think about to say, okay, what's most important to me right now? Is it all of them, or is it one? So for access, for example, there are a number of smart home technology products that help drive capabilities around access. The top is a smart lock, and there's a number of different brands that are out there. But this one in particular is a Yale smart lock, and this allows to, essentially work with different codes. So for example, you can have each person in your home with a different code, and it goes right where your deadbolt is in terms of the installation portion of it. So let's say you have a doorknob underneath it and you have your deadbolt right above it. That's where it is. And each person in the house has their own code. It notifies you or the other person in the house that has control over the home, who's home, when they entered. It also allows you to give people temporary codes. So let's say you have a plumber, or maybe you have a house cleaner come in, or someone else coming in, a parent. They can have their own code, and that can be temporary or it can be permanent, which is great. One of the nice things about the smart locks that are out there now is they actually work in conjunction with home security systems. So for example, with this particular lock, I'll explain how it works in my house. Each of my kids has their own code. When my daughter, Mandy, gets off the bus, she puts her code in. I get notified on my phone that she's home from school, and the security system inside is tied to the lock. So the security system doesn't go off because they know that Mandy has entered the home with her code. So she doesn't need to go in, run into the house, find the module, and type in the code. So that's an example of, really kind of a smart system, the products working together and not needing any additional programming. Along with access are video doorbells, which some of them provide facial recognition. You can turn on if you want, or not. And these have really been one of the more popular products. I have one here as well in my hand, which is a Ring. And we also have a Nest and a Ring on screen here. So what's nice about this is if you're looking at front door security, for example, a combination solution really is the smart lock along with a video doorbell. So you can both have visual verification that that person's at the door, as well as the security around the smart lock itself. So it's really kind of double verification that Mandy, for example, is entering the house. The other thing that's great about video doorbells is that they can ring to television screens in the home, and they also can ring to hubs. So let's say you have somebody who can't make it to the door, right? And let's say they don't have an iPhone or an Android phone with them, but they're near their hub, which we'll kind of go into in a minute. They can just talk right through the hub and not need to worry about talking through the phone, which is great. And also on the television portion of it, in terms of video doorbells and also the security systems, there's a capability where you can actually just stream views to the outdoors. So I'll give you an example. When we work from home, my son plays out in the backyard, and the security system that we have that's pointing to our backyard shows my son Jack. I obviously don't want to be in my phone all day because I'm working, but I have it streamed to our big 60-inch television in the living room, so I can hear him in the background and also keep an eye on him. So that's some example of front door security. The bottom piece here is a window door motion detector. And these are fantastic and have come a long way in the last 5 years from any traditional sensors that you have in the house. So one is that if you have animals, you now can set it so that let's say you have a 50-pound dog. It's not going to, mistake that dog for a person. Or if you have cats, it's not going to mistake it for a person. It really is just looking at people. We had a client in central Massachusetts, actually, that came to us last year that I'll share, and his son had autism and just kind of graduated to a second floor bedroom. And this client was very concerned about two things. One was keeping an eye on him in the yard because he had a tendency to take off. And then the second one was really around the second floor bedroom that he now is in, and the windows that were in there. So as part of the solution that we developed for him, we used these sensors on each of his windows. And what that did is, essentially if a window was opened in the middle of the night, that the parents were notified, which is great. If, he took off in the backyard and was heading toward the street, the cameras would catch him. He actually had this same video doorbell that's here. So that provided them just peace of mind that they were going to be able to keep eyes on him and also be able to understand the access points in the house, whether it be a door or windows on the second floor, to know whether or not they're open or closed. And we did that actually a year ago, and they've been very happy with the solution that they have. So those are some of the interior security portions that really help with safety. We also have in the market, there's about 1 million different type of Wi-Fi connected cameras. They have all sorts of different capabilities, from night vision to facial recognition, as I mentioned earlier. You can turn facial recognition on and off. Typically a home, depending upon its size, may have one in the front, one in the back, or maybe it would have a video doorbell in the front that covers most of the front, and then a camera in the back. Some of the cameras you can actually two-way talk through. So for example, in that example I talked about earlier with my son in the backyard, if he was pulling a dog's tail or doing something he shouldn't, I would be able to actually just talk to him right through my smartphone to say, hey, Jack, I see you, cut that out. So it's kind of neat capabilities. On the interior portion, you of course could have interior cameras, but I wanted to show you one of the things that I think is one of the best inventions that have happened within the smart home space. and that is smart smoke detectors. So obviously, you know, we all know what smoke detectors are. The difference with the new smoke detectors that are out are this. So in the old smoke detector land, when you were, you know, cooking in the kitchen and you accidentally set off the smoke alarm, I think everybody has done that, or you just burnt toast, right? You have to go to it, it blares, the whole house blares, scares everybody, right? And you got to go up to it and wave some sort of newspaper to try to get the smoke clearing and such. Well, in the new world of smart smoke detectors, you're notified first, hey, I detect smoke, is there an emergency? And if there isn't an emergency, you can just touch your phone and turn it off, as opposed to having the whole house explode with sirens over the burnt toast. The other thing it does, there's two more things that these do that I think they're really, really fantastic, particularly for families. One is that, you know, if there is a fire, let's say there's a fire in the middle of the night, it actually tells you where the fire is. So as opposed to having the alarm go off in the entire house all at once and there being a lot of confusion around wondering where it's on fire, this will actually say, it'll announce to the house, warning, fire in the living room or fire in the master bedroom. And isn't it great to know actually where the fire is when you're trying to escape the house, and having that really the whole family understand where it is. And lastly, one of the great things about this from a safety perspective is they actually will path your house. So typically, you know, smoke detectors are at the top of stairwells, bottom of stairwells, one in each bedroom. If you're in Massachusetts, for sure, that's part of the law, and a few other places. One of the cool things that this does is it's got a path light feature. So for example, if you need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, or one of your children needs to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, it will actually light a path up. If you need to go downstairs to get water, it will create light in your house so that you can actually see where you're going. So from a safety perspective, walking at night, whether or not it's children or other people in the house, it's incredibly helpful. So that is the smart smoke detector, and that's one of the biggest ways you can really improve the safety of your in-house. This is actually what it looks like at night, for example, when it's lit and creating pathways. Lastly, I just wanted to touch upon leak detection in the interior aspect of your house. So we all have, you know, washing machines and sinks and toilets and things like that. You may have somebody in your house that is really interested in water. And let's say somebody turns on the water and the sink and forgets to turn it off. And there's a big, you know, issue, right? Because water damage is not great for homes. It's actually much more costly for insurance companies than fires are. So smart leak detection systems are really cool, because what they are is they're little sensors, and you put them in different aspects of your house. And what it does is, as soon as it's got 2 contact points on the bottom, and as soon as it senses water, it lets you know. This particular solution we have here, there's a few brands on the market. This one's called Leak Smart, and one of the things we like about it is you can set it up so that it actually will shut off your water main automatically should it detect you know, that there is a leak and or water issue somewhere in your house. So that is an example of a smart home versus a clever home. So a clever home would just have the sensor, and you'd have to kind of be there to get the sensor and hopefully be home to be able to manage what the alert is. A smart home actually detects that and is set up so that your water main is shut off and actually avoids the damage. So those are kind of safety home automation products. You want to think about access, as I mentioned, which are these products. Where you want it, where are you most concerned about? Are you most concerned about outside? Are you most concerned about inside? If you determine like what is your first place to start, what's most important for you and your family, it'll help you narrow down where to start as you build your smart home. The second is entertainment. And we think about entertainment and connected homes. The first thing you want to understand is, what are you using for entertainment? And when I say entertainment, I'm thinking about really enjoyment of your home. So entertainment could be being able to queue up an audiobook. It could be allowing streaming for video games. It could be music. It could be other things, right? There's all sorts of content that's out there on the cloud. And this is really about saying, okay, what sort of content within your home do the people use? And typically it's very different depending upon the person. Where is that entertainment? Where is it mostly used? And then how are you going to get it there? So we'll talk a little bit about that. One of the things that has grown tremendously in the last 3 years are smart speakers. And this one is a brand called Sonos, but most companies now have smart speakers, and many of you may have Google or Alexa. Hopefully my house doesn't go off right now. In your house, right? These devices, these are called smart speakers. And now they're being incorporated into kind of some of the more well-known speaker brands as well, so that everything has the capability to control your house. So, you know, whether or not it's a small device like this, or it's a larger device, or even sound bars now under televisions have the capability to control your home and have access to Alexa, Google Smart, or Samsung Smart Things, all the major platforms. These are really kind of key items, because all of that content we talked about can be personalized to the person and can be in the place where they're at. So for example, in our home, each of our children has a very small speaker. They have inexpensive smart speaker, but that smart speaker in itself does a lot of things for them. You know, they're able to gain entertainment. They're able to set their own alarm in the morning. They're able to listen to music, all in an individual place. So that's an example. Secondly are really hubs. And the hub products that are out there are fantastic because they do a tremendous amount. And if you think about things like accessibility for people too, one of the great things about this product is it can be placed in a central spot where people are. And so much can be done from them. Basically, if you can imagine it, you can do it. So for example, in this case, this person is getting a recipe on their smart hub. You can also watch television on the smart hub. You can watch YouTube on the smart hub. You can also video call through that smart hub. And we'll talk a little bit later more about hubs and the other things that you can control, but it's pretty much endless. So as you look at enjoying your home and how to also just kind of improve accessibility too, these products are really not expensive and provide a lot of value. Also, you know, you can also take any television that you have in your house now, and if it doesn't have smart capabilities within it, as long as it has an HDMI port in it, which, you know, if you've purchased it within the last 6 or 7 years, chances are it does have at least one HDMI port. You can essentially convert that screen to a smart television, and you can stream security cameras to it. You can do pretty much everything that you can with a smart hub. You can have two-way calling on it. You can play video games. You can have educational access. You can do all sorts of things. So that is a very cool product because it allows all sorts of capabilities. Oh, I got somebody else coming in here. All right. I lost control. There we go. There we go. I'm back. Just admitted somebody in. Welcome in. You also, as you think about entertainment and where you want it, and enjoying your home, there's been a lot of different advances around audio and video. So let's say you are spending a lot of time outdoors, and this is something we're seeing a lot of. This is definitely more on the entertainment and enjoyable space, by the way, more of a nice to have versus a need to have. But we're seeing a huge boom in this because people are not going on vacation, especially right now. You know, their backyard is the Bahamas right now for all intents and purposes. So what we're seeing is people are bringing their vacation into their backyard, and they're adding smart speakers to their backyard that are weatherproof and can be outside year round, and also adding television screens as well outside that even in New England weather can be outside full time. The last thing I want to talk about entertainment is a favorite category, which is lighting. And there's been so much in the way of lighting in the last couple of years. And this particular product is called, it's a nano leaf. If you're ever in a Best Buy, you can see them. And they are fantastic for a number of different reasons. This is obviously a children's bedroom where the panels are in the back there. These do very cool things. They move. You can touch them. They change colors. You can download different scenes. This is particularly a whale scene. You can create, you know, essentially, you can put them in any different order you want. You can just create a line. You can make a whale like this. And what we use it for and how we apply it in homes is that, you know, essentially we use it to create light in spaces and little areas of oases just for people. So an example of this, for example, is with my son, we have a few, we don't have this many, but we have about 8 nano leaves that are together. And when he has his calls with his teacher and his instructors, you know, that particular lighting area is set to a calm light, which means the lights are very subtle and they kind of move in and out and they're subtle, and it creates a nice peaceful space with him. The lights also can work with music too. So they have a fun element to them where if, you know, there's a particular piece of music you had on, they actually would work like a synthesizer and go up and down, and there's different colors and things like that. So very cool connected products, and you know, I think that it's great from an entertainment perspective to be able to have that work with movies and music, and also just help create little private spaces for people where they can really customize something for themselves that makes them feel good. The last area here we have is wellness and comfort. So as you think, if this is your major thing, so we went through security, entertainment, the third area is really wellness and comfort. So if this is where you're starting, which by the way, most people who start to build smart homes, the top 2 categories are definitely security and wellness and comfort. They come to us either because they want to a smart video doorbell because they want to see their front, they want to make sure packages aren't stolen, or they want temperature control in their house. So they don't have to, you know, get up and move it, it's learning, etc. So there are a number of products that are out there that are really fantastic. The first you'll probably recognize, the one all the way over on the right, which is a smart thermostat. And there's a variety of brands, Ecobee, Honeywell, Nest, all of them are excellent. I have Nest here because they're kind of they were really the first to market with it. But they're fantastic products, and you can, we'll talk a little bit later about scenes and creating routines utilizing smart thermostats, because that's when they're most powerful. Certainly it will learn what temperature you like in your home during a certain time. It will be able to tell how hot it is outside or how cold it is and be able to adjust things inside for you. So it truly is a smart product versus a clever product. The thing next to it, I like to talk about, because a lot of people don't know that there are actually automated fans out there. And this is a company called Haiku, and they have engineered the first smart fan. And that is a fantastic product. What it does is, one, it works with smart thermostats to help with your energy bill. So for example, if you want to keep your temperature at 72, let's say, and it starts to get warm in there, the Haiku, the smart fan, will automatically kick on and start distributing air to keep the heat down so that you're not actually turning on your air conditioner, which is great. Some of the other things it does is you can voice control with it. So you can actually turn on the fan right through your voice. It's got a light on it. You can turn that light on right from your voice. It also has motion control on it. You can turn on and off with a Wi-Fi module, which basically means this is another product that if somebody needs a glass of water in the middle of the night and they're coming down the stairs, when they walk into the living room, the fan knows it's dark and that someone's there, and it turns on to create light and safety, which is very cool. So that product's not well known, but really, really neat. The other thing I want to mention before we move on it that it does, which is very cool, is it has something called a whoosh feature, which means that when you're sitting, let's say ours is in our living room, when you're sitting in your living room, it actually, unlike standard fans, what it'll do is if you want, it'll actually simulate natural breezes. It has this whoosh feature. So, you know, if you have a breeze come through your house, usually it's a little bit of a gust of air and then it kind of slowly dies down. This fan is smart enough so that it can actually simulate being outside, which is very cool. The product below it here is called a Sensibo. And what that is if you have an air conditioning unit that is like a window unit versus central air, which a lot of people have, this is a great device. It's under $100. And it connects to your Wi-Fi network, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to wirelessly control pretty much most air conditioning units. If your air conditioning unit has a remote control, then this can control it. And this can do a lot of things. It also has something called geofencing capabilities. So if it's connected to somebody's phone, for example, and they're about 5 miles away from the house driving home, this can sense through geofencing technology that somebody's 5 miles away from home, they're on their way home, and it will automatically kick on, which is great. So it kind of creates this place where you can walk into a cool house, right? As opposed to kind of getting in there and being like, oh, it's so hot in here and needing to turn it on. So it'll anticipate for you as well. Those are all settings you can turn on and off, but this product is really, really fantastic for just temperature control. You can also use voice control with it as well. So let's say, you know, it's an access situation. You want to be able to provide the ability to have somebody turn on the air conditioning, and maybe they're on a different floor, they can't get to it. They can just voice control it, or through a smart tablet or a phone, also turn it on, which is kind of cool. Lastly, here we have automated shades and lighting, and these also, you know, really play into wellness and comfort. Lighting in particular has a huge impact on everyone's wellness. I won't go into it right now because it's really kind of a large topic on its own, but the temperature of light, meaning how cool or warm it is, depending upon the time of day, really makes a big difference on your health. And a lot of the studies have shown, which means like basically, you know, as humans, our body and our eyes are used to certain things based on sunrise and sunset. And so what smart lighting has done, it's come so far in the last couple of years, you can actually program it so that it simulates what you should be seeing in terms of the time of year and the sunrise and the sunset, which has huge impacts on things like your quality of sleep, because melatonin in your brain is kicked off by certain temperature of light. Smart shades are fantastic. Those also can be voice controlled and work within scenes. Any shades you have in the house can be battery powered, automated. You don't need to have wire. It used to be that you have to get electrical to all your windows. You don't need to do that anymore. They run off of D batteries, and the batteries last, depending upon the size of the shade, anywhere between 6 and 7 years. So technology on the automated shade side has really come a long way, and those are fantastic products. And as we talk about tying it all together, there's an example of a smart home hub. One of the great things is that these products work within a dashboard for you to be able to manage your home and be able to understand what's happening on any of those categories, whether it's the security category we talked about, the entertainment category we talked about, or wellness and comfort. You're going to be able to look at individual rooms and then also be able to create scenes so that, you know, your house truly is smart versus clever. So the last step really is to tie it together with control. And the key things to kind of think about is that, like, really not one size fits all. So some people in your home are going to be voice control people for whatever reason. Other people are going to be tablet or smartphone people. And then other people are not going to want to use it at all or can't use it at all, right? And for those people, it's really going to be about creating routines and scenes in the technology that just happen automatically. Multiple modes can be used. And as I mentioned earlier, it really kind of depends on the person. And multiple modes can be used within one home, which is, I think, very, very cool. Use and preferences will tend to evolve over time. So you might have somebody start off with one mode, like they are into using just the apps, but then they get comfortable with voice, or they see the power of voice and they want to use it. What's nice about this is it's interchangeable as well. So there's really 4 types of smart home control, and it's evolved over the years. So the first is really physical UI, and a lot of you will recognize that as a security panel, and that's kind of the early start of home automation. Really was around security. So you'll see a lot of that still, right? Those are still being installed, still being used. We've seen with the smart home evolution, digital interfaces, right? Whether that be a large tablet or a smaller smartphone. And in the last 2 years, we've seen a huge uptick in smart speakers, like we talked about, and the use of voice. So that's been kind of the evolution. All of those are still very viable, but what we're seeing really, and what we try to get to from a smart home perspective, is really not having as much of an interface, and really understanding over time, how are you going to use your home? How are you going to use this technology so that you can create scenes that serve you and your family? And we'll talk about that here. We just have a couple slides left, and hopefully we'll have time for a few questions if people have them. So tying everything together, scene automation. Some examples are, you can set up good morning scenes, good night scenes, quiet time scenes. Let's say you have a particular time of day where it needs to be quiet. You can set up a scene that changes the lights, changes the sound, creates an environment where there is quiet. Movie time, right? That hits upon entertainment. So let's say it's time for movies. You can set up a scene where the shades go down, the lights go down, the television turns on, and you're ready for popcorn and hopefully a good movie. Study time, game night. Those are a few others that are very popular. And when you look at really scene automation, there's a number of things that kind of work together as a symphony: lighting, sound, security, and information. And we talk about information with scenes. I'll give you an example. So in our house, when we have our good night scene go, our lights come down, our front door locks, our security system arms, rain sounds comes on, which is like what we like to go to sleep to. And we also hear the weather for the next day. And that happens all at once because that's been programmed. And it's pretty easy to do. You just have to think about, what are the things that are most important for me and my family for the hardware that you need? What are the use cases? And, you know, some of it's a little bit of trial and error, but it's not difficult to do. And the technology has come so far that things like this, scene automation, through voice control or through your phone, you're able to create those experiences quite quickly. So let's recap. So the 3 steps really are Wi-Fi and network assessment, making sure that that foundation is strong. And if it's not, there's certainly capabilities to help you. You know, most Wi-Fi networks, you know, if they're 3 to 5 years old, it's time to take a look at them. Secondly, decide what your goals and priorities are. We kind of covered them, right? Like, is safety the most important thing? Is it entertainment? Is it health, wellness, accessibility, convenience, that third category, which is more of an umbrella? What I suggest is you really start with one of those areas and pick a few things that you want to try out to start implementing into your home. And then thirdly, tie it together with control that's right for you and the people in your house, given your situation. I know we all have our different, situations, right? What's nice with this is that there's a few different ways that you can approach it, and everyone can have their own approach within that same home, which is truly, truly customized. So that, how am I doing on time? I did okay.
You did perfect.
I did perfect. That's amazing. I'm gonna try to pull up the screen here. Here we go. Stop presenting. I'm not so great at this. Let's see. Sarah, do you know how I go back to, oh, stop share. There we go. The big one in front.
Perfect.
All right. Do we have any questions, comments, thoughts?
I do. So what if you have families that have already, you know, put certain pieces in, but they don't all communicate? Can you then go in instead of having to start over? Can you kind of put it all together and, and reconnect things or connect things? Like, do things, so they have a hub for their blinds and a hub for their lights and a hub for something else. Can it all get incorporated?
Yes, it can. It depends on the brands and whether or not they have interoperability. But I'll give you an example. So Lutron, which is and Hunter Douglas, those are the main brands. They work with many of the main hubs, Google, Alexa, Control4, all the big ones. And a number of the products that have been out there, as long as they're not like a small company or a company that's gone away, and some have, like there's a company called Wink, for example, if you've heard of that company, which used to aggregate apps and try to solve that problem. They're might be on their way out and have kind of changed their model. But most things can be, it just needs to be assessed. So, and connected within whatever that hub is. So there needs to be typically one main hub where all of those devices go into, and in some cases you lose some capabilities. In some cases you don't. You maintain all capabilities that you had within that individual app under the umbrella of the new hub.
And last question, sorry, I'll ask one more. So
I love questions.
Say we have like a person-centered plan for individuals, and you and I kind of talked about that a little bit, like figuring out what the problem is first. And then, so if we came to you with like a person-centered plan, could you then kind of pinpoint certain technology that we might not have thought of that would work well for those individuals for the problems we're trying to solve, kind of?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Rebecca, did you raise your hand, or was just doing this?
I didn't intend to raise my hand, but I was waiting for a question. So I'm not terribly tech savvy. I love your whole presentation.
Oh, good.
However, one of the things that has always concerned me is these periodic news stories we hear about someone's hacked into your Nest or your Ring doorbell or whatever. So, and certainly the population we're talking about is extremely vulnerable, and we want to be super sure that we're not putting anything in place that could in any way endanger them. So how do we move forward and feel safe with the technology that's supposed to help us feel safe?
Absolutely. So I'm glad you asked that, because we didn't touch upon that, and we normally do. So the two biggest concerns to that curve going up are privacy, just people knowing my data, and then also hackers. Hacking happens, and the big companies like Google and Amazon, who owns Ring, they have been focused on this for the last few years with a lot of intent. Really, the way to prevent that is one, on the network portion of it, that piece, as humans, we've done some things like, you know, cats might be our like password. Like it might be like our children's name. I'm guilty of this too. Our children's name and the year, you know what I mean? Just because we have so many passwords, we try to make it simple. So what the technology companies have implemented, even in the last year, are two really important technologies. One, they force you to have a strong password. No more, you know, Jimmy Jen 2011. That's not going to work, right? It needs to be strong. The second thing they've done is they've rolled out two-factor authentication, which is huge. So what that means is that, you know, if you're looking to log into, because you need to log into these apps, right? This control hub, etc. And the system does not recognize you, it will send a text to the owner's account. And you actually need to verify that is me. And when you verify that is you, you're good to go. It's enterprise level security. Now, the people who've been hacked into didn't turn on their two-factor authentication. And so that's really forced that to kind of come in, and they've put a lot more on the security aspect of it in terms of requiring stronger passwords. I wanted to just touch upon privacy real quick too, because we get some clients that are kind of like, oh, you know, people know everything about me by now. I use credit card. They know what I buy. Like that ship has sailed. They don't care too much. And then we have the other people that are like, I love this technology, but I don't want Google or somebody else to know anything about me. So some of the control systems are closed, meaning you like it's private. Some of the security systems are not in the cloud. So for the clients that care about our privacy people, for security, for example, we'll have a DVR or an NVR at the house. Like it won't be hosted on Google's cloud. It's actually a device in their house that is not on the cloud. So that's that customer. And then, you know, some of the work that the big companies have done is they've started to recognize this, you know, some people won't buy their products because of the privacy aspect. So now there are really clear kind of, you can opt in, opt out on what sort of information you share. And if you think about like voice assistants, for example, and children, you know, you might not want a voice assistant knowing the vocal imprint of your 9-year-old. I know I didn't, right? So you can turn that off, which is really, really important because that's a huge privacy issue. So really good Wi-Fi with a good password, closed, and two-factor authentication, and then not sharing it. So most of the hacking and security stuff really has to do just with us as humans learning how to keep our homes secure versus somebody like really, really hacking in because they're, you know, really good at it. Good. Any questions, comments? No?
Well, I can just say I love the presentation. It was wonderful. And I think that one of my questions is, so if a family would like to start with just one thing, I believe you said that you can then augment that. I mean, you can, let's say someone wants to start with a, you know, the doorbell camera. So, and also I would like to know price range. I mean, how much money would something like that cost if someone wants to start with that?
The doorbell itself? Doorbells range from, let's say, like $179 to $220. And that's about those are the ones that are good. They're probably cheaper brands coming into the marketplace, but really those are the ones that are secure and kind of proven companies that have like enterprise level software, Ring, Google. So it's a couple $100. But they work very well, and you know, some of the industries are providing support. So for example, when I mentioned the leak detection portion of it, insurance companies are now funding that. So they're saying, just like security. So it used to be if you put a security too. So if you put a security system in your house, most home insurance carriers will provide you a discount because you're not going to be broken into as much. Same thing with the leak detection. because that's such a huge loss, theft, right? And water damage to houses are the biggest things that they end up getting claims for. So it's in their best benefit to do it. And the leak detection, they'll give you a few $100s off of your home insurance if you have those in place. So I think that insurance companies are looking to help with these and the investment, because they see such a huge benefit. The big ones like Nationwide, Liberty Mutual, and same thing with the smart thermostats. A lot of those are close to cost because the state is funding it through Mass Save. There's huge rebates on things. If it's helpful, I can put together a little, like, we send them to clients so that they're getting all the deals,
Yeah, and so, part of the thing that DDS is helping us with will be the new assistive tech lending library, so that people will be able to come in and see some of these devices. Some of them they'll be able to borrow.
Oh, cool.
Blinds will be up in the room so that they can test them. The things that were feasible to borrow, they can borrow for a few months and see if it works before they actually purchase it.
That's awesome.
So they'll have some different options, and then we'll add the resources in the room. So things that you can supply us with will be part of that, or if they need to get connected with somebody, that will be part of it. So some of the devices they'll be able to kind of check out, like the door lock and things like that.
That's fantastic.
One more question. In regards to the leak detection that you mentioned, there detects leaks, but what about, let's say a house is getting flooded or something like that? I was just wondering.
I'm sorry, I missed that last part. The house getting
flooded. If it's, it would detect that, or just looking for a faucet or something.
Yeah, it will. It depends on what you. There's there's a few major brands. I shouldn't say two. There's more like three, but one will actually look at the throughput in your major pipe, and will determine if it is like way more water than normal. It'll know through a set of algorithms, and it will stop the flood through a water main shutoff. The second technology I mentioned on the leak detection piece, one of the places we put those sensors with the contact points on the bottom, typically are basements, because there's water tank, smart water tank shutoffs too, that are pretty much becoming standard nowadays, because everybody has probably had that go at some point and had their basement flooded. So the water tank portions are great because they actually stop the flood there with the water in it. And then the second piece is really, and those little leak detectors, they're like $35 a unit. They're not super expensive, very reasonable. Put that in the basement near some pipes and you'll be notified.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great. Well, thanks for the questions. These are great. Anything else before we wrap up? No, we're good.
We're good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's such a great opportunity. And I'll be back at 6, I think. Yeah, we got some people at 6. Thank you again, and look forward to helping.
Thank you
Thanks so much, Jen.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. See ya.